I'm going to be real with you for a second. Hello, by the way, welcome to the video. I've always been against food in Space Engineers. It's like one of the big three things: the jump drive, shields, and food. Obviously the jump drive's already in the game, so I can't do much about that. Shields, I think, is more of an issue with the way that we repair ships, and I think the projector change that has been added recently goes a long way to address that, making it much easier to see what on your ship needs repairing. And then finally, there's food. I didn't think it fitted into Space Engineers. The game's more about building ships than it is about being a hardcore survival game. But before you write your comment telling me that I'm horribly wrong on this opinion, or alternatively that you agree with me, hold up. I think it's time that we let Keen cook. Again, this is a section where I'm being real with you, and Space Engineers recently has had some of the best updates the game I think has ever gotten. Every update we've got for the last few years has been better than the last one. And I was thinking about this a lot recently, and this is probably going to end up being a much longer tangent than I mean it to be. But let's just go back, right? Let's go to Sparks of the Future. Sparks of the Future came out in 2020, and you can see on this poster what was added in the update. Weather is added in this update, which is pretty cool, but I always turn it off because it affects my videos. The hinge was added, which is very cool. Letters were added, and I didn't realize letters were added so late in the life cycle of Space Engineers. They feel like they've always been there. And on the right, you can see all the DLC additions. You've got the 2 thrusters, you've got this button panel, which I really like, textures and all kinds of stuff. And whilst I'll say that everything in this DLC is good, as you'll see going forward, there's not a lot in this compared to what we've been getting recently. So if you go to the next update released, and I promise we're going somewhere with this tangent, we have the Wasteland update, which includes Pertown, which is by far the best planet in Space Engineers. I will die on this hill. I hope every planet in Space Engineers 2 is as good as Pertown, if not better. They added the rover cockpit, which is a very cool cockpit. They added new slope blocks, and they added the scrap race scenario. And again, if you come to the right, you get the buggy cockpit, which is pretty cool, the exhaust pipe, and then a bunch of cosmetic blocks. And if you look at this update and the last one side by side, there's not a lot there. I'm not diminishing these updates, as what's in them is cool, but it's really easy to visualize the point I'm about to make if you look at these update posters. The next update after that was Warfare 1, and that added an overhaul to ground combat, which was actually pretty significant even if ground combat still isn't that good. It added the pistols and rocket launchers, the target dummy you can see here, and also the uranium heist scenario, which is actually pretty fun. And then just take a look on the right at the DLC offering. I think there would be riots in the streets if this DLC was to release today. Again, just keep in mind the quality and the amount of stuff that is added in these last few posters, right? Heavy Industry was the next update, and this is the last one before I start to get to my point, but I think you really need to see all the other ones to understand. The amount of stuff you get in it is less than what we're about to look at, but I think the quality of this stuff is very, very good. I think the quality of this stuff in the DLC was so good that they had to really step up the game for the next few DLCs. But then, if you look at what was added to the base game, sure, magnetic plates, the small grid merge block, and armor panels were really cool, but that's it. That's all that was added in this update. And it seems like this was reflected in the player numbers, as the Heavy Industry update had the lowest player count Space Engineers has ever received for an update. But then we get to an update that completely revolutionized Space Engineers. Not just in terms of gameplay, which it also did, but in terms of what we expect from a Space Engineers update. Warfare 2, the update that launched this channel and also massively improved combat in the game. For starters, we got a large amount of weapon variety, but not only did we get the weapons, they also overhauled the way combat works, so you can now target ships, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. I feel like a lot of people don't understand how the combat system in the game works because they moan about combat, and I'm like, what you're complaining about is in the game, you just don't understand it. And also, we got what was at the time the best block in Space Engineers, the custom turret controller. And I don't know if people remember, at the time, this made so many new things possible. People using them to make missiles, drones, all kinds of things. The amount of stuff this single block managed to do was crazy. Like, I've always been a Space Engineers Luddite, and I was able to make missiles with this thing. And then we have the Warfare DLC pack, which, as you can immediately see, has a lot more stuff than the previous DLCs in it. The light panel, the ion thruster, the Warfare reactor, the Warfare battery, the helm is probably my favourite cockpit, and just so much cool stuff. I think quality-wise, Heavy Industry is better, but hopefully you can see that the updates are getting bigger and better. And that nicely moves us on to Automatons. Like Warfare 2 before it, Automatons was the biggest update the game had ever received when it was released. Was it as visually impressive as all the new weapons? No. But were the AI blocks and event controller the new best blocks in the game? Hell yes. The event controller just, so good. What a great block. You can do so much stuff with it. And obviously the AI blocks, you can do so much stuff with them. And all the encounters we're about to get in the next couple of updates aren't possible without them as well. And shout out to my boy 2x2 wheels. As a rover enjoyer, I really like these. They are so much better for rovers. The 3x3 were always too big and the 1x1 were always too small. But 2x2, mwah, perfect. And then we come over to our DLC offering and there's just so much stuff here. And it's all so good. The saddle cockpit is amazing. Access panels, as we all know, I love blocks with interactive elements, and these just scratch that itch so much. The new timer block, the inset light, the programmable block, the emotion controller, even the signs, just all of this stuff is so good. There were a couple of smaller updates between automatons and the next major update, but even these updates had loads of cool stuff in them. Warfare Evolution was one of these minor updates, and despite that, it's really good. For starters, flat thrusters are amazing. I mean, come on, they spin. And also there was these short wheel suspensions, which again, as a rover enjoyer, oh, so good. Space Standoff still deserves its own video because I'm just so confused about it. But Decorative Pack 3, it's up there. It's got to be one of the best DLCs for Space Engineers. There isn't a single miss. The barrels are awesome, the cockpit is awesome, the solar panels are so good, so much better than the vanilla ones. The wind turbine, the crate, all the inset blocks, the medical room, even the war-worn armor texture, oh, so good. If there's one DLC you need, it's definitely this one. The Signal update included the Action Relay and the Broadcast Controller, which are more automation blocks like the AI and Event Controller, and again you can do so much cool stuff with them. Like you can use the Action Relay to activate a drone that flies around and then uses the Broadcast Controller to spam like and subscribe at unsuspecting people. But you know, who would do something like that? Who could that possibly be? And again, the DLC offering is quite big, but I want to draw your attention to the console blocks, which I think are worth the price of the DLC alone, because they are some of the best cosmetic blocks in Space Engineers. I can't imagine building a bridge of a ship without these. Next comes one of the big boy updates, the Contact update. It's peak, guys, it's peak. First of all, planetary encounters. Amazing, no notes. Second of all, endgame encounters. Exactly the thing I've been saying that Space Engineers needed all these years. And all of them are so good. So much better than I could have ever imagined. And then we have Prototech. Again, one of the things I'd complained about for years was the lack of endgame blocks, and now we have a whole bunch of them, and they all look absolutely beautiful, especially the gyroscope, because it spins, and as we all know, I love spinning things. And then we have the Contact Pack, which has the variant of the turrets that we desperately needed, a variant of the piston I didn't even know I needed, and then so many amazing blocks. A great offering, but then Keen was like, well, we did so well last time, why don't we just do it again? And that brings us to last week's update, Fieldwork, which includes a complete overhaul to the rest of the space-based encounters. Well, except for random encounters, but I'm sure they're coming next. They even did unknown signals. I don't know why. You just press a button and get something, but they were like, yeah, we'll make those even better as well. We'll give you a proper reason to do them. And they made cargo ships way more interesting and much more worthwhile to do, making them much more dynamic and interesting combat-wise, and also improving the loot you get from them. And then they were like, oh yeah, we'll just add a million quality of life updates. They improved the projector, as I said earlier, to highlight missing and unwelded blocks. They added a bunch of set action options, and they were like, oh yeah, well, you know, we haven't given you enough good stuff this update, so we'll also add a new Protosec block, the Protosec Fusion Reactor. Sure, which also spins, so it's like an 11 out of 10 block. And then on top of that, they were like, well, let's just release the biggest and best DLC pack we've ever released. So they did. The Fieldwork pack just blows every other DLC out of the water. I know it seems like I'm just shilling for Keen and saying, oh, look at all this good stuff we've done. But you have to remember, a couple of minutes ago, we were talking about updates that added like 3 things. And those things weren't even that great. Like at the time, they were like, oh, wow, weather. Oh, pistols, wow. Oh, hinge, amazing. And now we're like, bro, they completely overhauled the game. There is actually now a gameplay element in it. Bro, they've added so many blocks to the game and they're all amazing. And that's what every update has been like for the past couple of years. I don't know what happened at Keen. I don't know why they woke up one day and was like, yes, let's put out perfection every single update. But that's just what they've been doing. Every update since Warfare 2 has been better and better than the last. Just look at the Fieldwork update compared to Sparks of the Future. That should say everything you need to know. Again, this isn't me shilling. I've made many videos in the past complaining about things in the game I don't like. It's just, over the last 3 years, an overwhelmingly large number of these issues have been addressed, and the updates released have all been very good. So if Keen says, we're doing a survival update and we're going to add food to the game, I might never have wanted that feature, but sure, I'm game. They've proven themselves again and again over the past few years, so I have faith that they can deliver. So whatever they're adding, sure, I'll let them cook. And that might be quite literally in the case of this new update. So, with all that yapping out of the way, what are they actually adding in the next update, other than just food? On the blog for the update, they wrote this. What's next? Survival mode. We're expanding the survival experience with new gameplay systems in our next update. Environmental hazards will affect how you explore and build, whilst managing food supplies and maintaining farm plots will become key to staying alive in the frontier of space. All of these features will be optional and configurable when creating your world, so you can tailor survival to fit your playstyle, whether you're looking for a hardcore challenge or a more relaxed experience. We're looking forward to sharing more soon. Additionally, at Space Engineers 2's press event, we also received this small snippet about the next update as well. 1.207 will concentrate on enhancing survival gameplay, adding many new options to the game, including environmental hazards. So we have 2 core features, environmental hazards and food, which will both be highly configurable to match with your playstyle. I find it interesting that it says environmental hazards will affect how you explore and build, and that seems to be separate from managing food supplies and maintaining farm plots. So what kind of environmental hazards are these? Does this mean like a dust storm that blows your ship around, making it difficult to fly? Potentially it damages your ship? Or when they say environmental hazards, does it mean things in the environment? Like sabroids, for example. I would love an expansion to sabroids, or just any kind of new mob. That'd be really cool. If it is new mobs, I have the pitch for the fungus-infected engineer. We know that fungus that infects people and takes over their mind is canon in Space Engineers. And if you don't know that, my lore video is coming soon and I'll explain that. But it would be cool to have these kind of zombie engineers coming after you. I should clarify, I doubt that'll happen, but you know, it's worth thinking about. Environmental hazards don't just have to be limited to planets. For example, they could overhaul the way meteor storms work and make them more interesting for the way the game currently works. Maybe they could add some sort of space fauna. Imagine a scenario where you land inside of an asteroid because you're running away from Factorum or something, and then you get out and you realise you haven't landed inside of an asteroid, you've instead landed in the stomach of a big worm. Now that I think about it, that's one of the weirdest things to happen in Star Wars, isn't it? I don't know, obviously I'm joking about the worm thing, but environmental hazard is very interesting. I'd love to see what it actually refers to, if it's just storms and stuff. I guess we already have storms, but you know what I mean. Or if it's more of a direct threat, like an improvement to the mobs, like sabroids and dogs and stuff. Although I'm just thinking about the explore part. What does the build part mean? What environmental hazards would change how you build?
Zero, you spent a long portion of the video yapping about Space Engineers updates. You're not allowed to yap about environmental hazards anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, food. Food is very interesting. You're probably thinking, Zero, why is it very interesting? Well, because it's not just food, it's also farm plots. Now sure, farm plots could just be a block, literally called a farm plot, that you put seeds in and then a little green bush grows out of it. And you know what? That might be quite likely. Maybe they'll just add a bunch of hydroponic blocks to grow food in. Sure. But, my dear viewer, medieval engineers exist. And in medieval engineers, you can grow crops on voxels. You have to till the ground. You have to plant seeds, and over time, they will grow inside the voxels. And then you can build big machines to harvest all of these crops. Now, I'm going to say that probably no one that works on Space Engineers worked on medieval engineers. I think only like 5 people worked at Keen when medieval engineers was being developed. So I would not be surprised if no one there has worked on medieval engineers or even played it. But in theory, it's on the same engine as Space Engineers. It is very much tweaked, but it's the same engine, so it could be possible. But I am leaning more towards a hydroponics idea. The only thing that makes me think that it might not be hydroponics is when you start the game, what are you going to do? You're not going to build big hydroponics straight away, are you? You'll be mining stone underground for 40 hours to place a single wind turbine. I don't think you're going to be worried about placing hydroponics down anytime soon. Unless, of course, that's something else they plan to resolve in this update. But, of course, that is assuming that food will only be available through farm plots. Now, I don't like to speculate too much. I've been accused of it in the past, and normally I try to keep my speculations within a certain boundary of things that I think are possible within Space Engineers, and also possible to implement in a reasonable amount of time. But if we assume environmental hazards mean mobs, maybe, potentially, and you need an early game way of getting food, which didn't involve massive amounts of hydroponics, maybe they're adding animals to the game? Maybe? I don't even know how difficult it is to add a mob into Space Engineers. They haven't added one since... Oh, when did they add one? The wolves must be the last thing? I don't think they've added anything since then. I think there is a model for a deer in the files of the game, but that's not actually in the game. So, I don't know. I think it is very interesting to think about. I mentioned earlier it was time to let Keen cook, quite literally, and we haven't actually discussed that yet. Whilst we spoke quite a bit about getting base ingredients like crops and meat, we haven't actually spoke about how you convert that into food, and then what eating that looks like. I would imagine in the early game, the survival kit would serve this function. You give it some sort of organic material and it turns it into something edible, and I would imagine they're going to add a hunger bar on the bottom left as well. And then consuming that food item refills that bar. But the question is, will this process of creating food be part of the assembler or the refinery's function? Like you put grain, for example, in the refinery and it refines it into something? With there being cosmic coffee in the game, maybe you can make coffee beans and then you can refine that in the refinery? Or maybe it'll just be done in the assembler? Or maybe they'll add a new machine, some sort of oven or replicator style block, that crafts food for you. It depends if these farm plots give you specific ingredients, so like if they give you wheat or coffee or whatever, or if they just give you organics and those organics just convert into a generic food item. Considering the fact we have clan cola and cosmic coffee in the game currently, whilst they're not craftable in the game, maybe that could be considered some sort of baseline, or maybe because that's old content we should ignore that entirely. It all really depends on what the scope of this update is going to be. Is it going to be a massive update that completely overhauls the survival of the game? Or is the food or farm plots mechanic going to be introduced into the game in quite a simple manner to not conflict too much with the normal Space Engineers experience? Especially as it can be toggled on and off. I can't imagine they want to put that much development time into something like this, if a large portion of players turn it off. We'll have to see. Environmental hazards, food supplies, and farm plots. They all form this kind of trifecta of potential, effectively. And because this update is adding food and environmental hazards, it is going to be a massive shakeup for the game, so maybe these massive shakeup changes could actually get added. It's also worth noting that the screenshot I said earlier says adding many new options to the game, so food and environmental hazards aren't the only things coming. Maybe there's more massive changes to survival coming that we don't know about yet. Or maybe it's just going to be some hydroponic blocks, and the environmental hazards will be a dust storm, and your starting pod will spawn in with 30 clang crunches so you don't die immediately. Who knows? Clangios. Does that work? I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching a ton of videos on medieval engineers recently. It was mainly to learn about food, but then I discovered they have cable. Like seriously, they have these ropes that you can put between things and you can make contraptions with them. I am really tempted to play it and I keep thinking, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna do it on the second channel and I'm gonna play it. And as soon as I get time to play it, I'm like, Zero, you haven't made this week's video yet. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been yapping about updates for half an hour. But if you'd like to see me play some medieval engineers, every time I see footage of the game, I'm surprised by an amazing new feature I didn't know existed and I really want to check it out. So let me know in the comments below, and I'll also link my second channel in the description just in case. Next Sunday, there'll be a newsletter for Space Engineers, and usually these newsletters contain teasers for the next update. And hopefully that will shed some light on what environmental hazards, food supplies and farm plots actually means, or maybe it will introduce something completely different about the survival update that will blow my mind even further. So, if you want to find out what's in that newsletter, and also there's been some really big Space Engineers 2 news this week, why can't I just get a break? Keen, can you just take a week and not do something awesome, please? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to see any of that. And with that out of the way, I think I'm going to play Medieval Engineers now. It actually looks pretty fun. Maybe we can start the Medieval Engineers Renaissance. I don't know.